Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is Liège-Bastogne-Liège 2025. Okay, today's race, 11 categorized climbs on a 255-kilometer course. I'll call it about 155 miles in length. Liège-Bastogne-Liège is one of the hardest monuments. Okay, Tour of Lombardy is actually the hardest, but the difference between Tour of Lombardy is it really favors the pure climbers because the mountains or climbs that they have in Tour of Lombardy are extensively long. We're talking over 5 kilometers long. Here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, along with the other monuments, they like to stay under 5 kilometers, closer to 3, but they go very steep here in Belgium. So it's an out and back course, Liège-Bastogne-Liège. But we know once they get into Bastogne and then they have to turn around and come back that the real exciting part of the racing starts taking into effect. Now remember, with so many climbs, 11 in total, and most of them starting about 140 kilometers to go in today's race, the action really picks up around there. But when the cameras come on proper, we see there's a breakaway of 11 riders in there, and we got one rider from 7-Eleven. 7-Eleven is back in town. We'll call that Team Uno X, but there's 7-Eleven here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège because one of the sponsors owns the rights to the 7-Eleven businesses up there in the north of Europe. So as we start coming back into here in Belgium, we start looking at these 11 riders. The gap starts going out to about 5 minutes, and the peloton is being led the whole time that I've seen as the cameras are on proper from Pseudo Quickstep and UAE Team Emirates. I told you guys you don't ride with #1 ranked rider in the world, but Remco Evenepoel Pseudo Quickstep team. He has said many times throughout the beginning of his 25 season, starting at the Brabantse-Pijl, excuse me, that his form is coming on very good shape and he likes where he's at. And at Flèche Wallonne, he said he had some of the best legs he's had throughout the 3 races he's already done, but he just had cold legs. So they're on the front right now pulling with UAE Team Emirates. I don't like it. They're not necessarily a knucklehead because, of course, Remco Evenepoel's 4th on my first page of riders, so they're not knuckleheads, but I don't like it. But there's only one Pseudo Quickstep ride, Gil Gilders, along with Vegard Steckelegen from UAE Team Emirates. That gap, as I already told you, up to 5 minutes with 11 riders. We start coming in about 140 kilometers to go. This is when the action starts getting picked up because they're coming near the Stakkur climb that's in the Stavelot region, which means the racing's going to be hot and heavy once you get under 100 kilometers to go. But coming into 140 is why it's starting to get a little bit more nervous because we're coming up to the first climb and you see the pelotons finally start widening out a little bit as everyone's fighting for real estate right now to be at the front for the first of these important climbs that are coming up at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Now we get into the first climb and we see a couple knuckleheads. It's called Bob Jungels, my old teammate from Radio Shack. He's going up the road, and then we see Tobias Foss from Ineos Bridge Up. So we got 2 Ineos riders in the middle of nowhere land. I don't know what these knuckleheads are thinking. There's nothing that's going to happen when UAE Team Emirates have only been riding one guy on the front right now, and Pseudo Quickstep's only been riding one guy on the front too. But as we come into the next set of climbs, and it's getting nervous before that, we see it's curb to curb, and we see a lot of the Ineos riders on the right side near the gutter there. That's G. Thomas trying to look after Lawrence de Plus, Carlos Rodriguez, who's one of their top paid riders there for Team Ineos. As these guys are trying to fight on the left side, everybody's coming in the first of these crucial sections here at the 25 edition of Liège-Bastogne-Liège. So keep in mind, if you're Team Ineos and you just sent Tobias Foss and Bob Jungels up the front, that means Carlos Rodriguez, Axel Laurence, and De Plus don't have very many teammates around them to really help them fight in position, so they're going to have to waste a little bit more energy while you got 2 knuckleheads from Ineos in the middle of nowhere land that have almost no chance of this happening. Better move would be to wait for that break of 11 to get caught or at least get much closer and then try to go across so you have some help. If you want to tack on the first of the crucial climbs under 140 kilometers to go and you just do a little feeler to see if maybe you could get 5-10 guys going with you, I could possibly agree with that. But 2 guys from the same team and you got Carlos Rodriguez, Alex Laurence back there, and De Plus that are your main guys here to win. I don't like this move, but they're going up the road anyways. As we see the peloton get nervous and it comes into the first of the climb, Tadej Pogacar, Remco Evenepoel are always in good position, and then UAE Team Emirates start taking over the front once we start getting closer to the Stakkur. As we start coming up into the climb just before the Stakkur, you see that, of course, Foss and his teammate up there, my old teammate Bob Jungels, are getting closer to wrapped up. Once they get wrapped up on the Stakkur, we start looking at the break up front that was 11, but it blew up on the Stakkur all over the place. And then we see Jack Haig from Bahrain Victorious leading down the descent with 4 chasers from the original break chasing hot on his heels. As they come off the Stakkur and they start leaving the town of Stavolo, they start going up the next climb. We got 5 guys from the original break of 11 that are working hard together, trying to hold off UAE Team Emirates behind. Only problem is that gap that was at 5 minutes has dropped down significantly, and we're under a minute time right now to the original break. That's 5 guys at this moment. Now, UAE Team Emirates are on the front. They start to ease up a little bit as we're coming through the feed zone, and Liddell Trek start getting on the front. If I back the camera all the way up to 125 kilometers to go, though, after we saw the 2 Ineos riders attack, Liddell Trek got on the front there, and they're big-time knuckleheads for riding in. Now when we see them on the front, this is a little bit more just kind of putting themselves in position. They're not necessarily fighting to be at the front and picking the pace up, but they're still semi-knuckleheads, but certainly were knuckleheads for pulling way back there the 125 kilometers to go with Soudal Quick-Step and UAE team members. They have probably the second strongest team here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, even stronger than Remco Evenepoel's Soudal Quick-Step team, but they don't have a first-page rider like Remco Evenepoel, so I'll call them third-best team at this moment, so they shouldn't be on the front, but they are. We fast forward up a little bit further, and we start seeing the 5 breakaway guys get all wrapped up with just about 60, 65 kilometers to go. We come into 51 kilometers to go. This starts getting interesting because Remco Evenepoel, Soudal Quick-Step, 4th best rider in the world, and had some good form. He won Brabantse-Pijl. He got 3rd at Amstel Gold. Didn't go so well at Flèche Wallonne, but he finished in the top 10 after he said his legs blew up coming up the Mur de Huy. Well, now he's out of position. He's a little bit far back. UAE Team Emirates are still at the front of the peloton, and they're starting to push the pace. Once we start getting on the Disney climb, they start pushing it really hard, and Domi Novak's throwing in full gas, trying to do some big-time effort, because with 35 kilometers to go, we're getting into La Redoute. So at this moment, we see UAE Team Emirates drilling it. Now we go over the top of the climb. Once we come into about 40 kilometers to go, this is where you start coming down the descent. And remember, at 35 kilometers to go is La Redoute. So this descent, I've done many times when I've done Liège-Bastogne-Liège. It's nervous, it's crazy, and it's chaos. You have to be at the front of the peloton. And right now, when we see it's curb to curb, G. Thomas is doing a good job of looking after his teammates at the front of the peloton, trying to help Carlos Rodriguez and his 2 other guys here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège stay in good position. Now, as he's fighting for position, Tadej Pogačar is still at the front, but Remco Evenepoel is not. This is a crucial moment. I remember doing this in the rain one time, and I was so far back, the race was already over for me. We hadn't even started La Redoute, and right now Remco Evenepoel is not at the front. We kind of lose him in the pictures, and we don't know exactly where he was, but the last image I had, he was in the middle of the peloton, and as we start coming down off this crazy fast 80-kilometer sweeping turns, descent, once we come into town, we start seeing UAE team members are at the front, and we start finally finding pictures there of Remco Evenepoel. He's in about 60th position as we're coming through the lefts and the right turns. Now, we'll see that is two-door cycling on the front. That's Marco Brunner up there as he's throwing in a ton of effort there, as Brunner's throwing in effort on the pedals to keep his teammates from two-door cycling in good position. He's got Mark Hirschi and Julian Alaphilippe up around the front. The German champions throwing in huge efforts, and so you know Remco Evenepoel is in big-time trouble because he's 55th position right now as we're going through all the zigzags here before La Redoute starts proper. Now, Tadej Pogačar is in a good position. He's got UAE team members wrapped around him. Two-door cycling, as I said, is controlling the front of the peloton, going full gas, and EF Education are near the front of the peloton. They're all looking good, but Remco Evenepoel suffering at the back, way back there in 55th position as we start coming closer and closer to La Redoute through the next turns. Once the climb starts starting proper, we see Remco Evenepoel hasn't made much progress. He's still 50th spot back there. He's going to have a hard La Redoute. Now, we see as we come into the climb, two-door cycling, Brenner is at the front. He's throwing down everything on the pedals. Then he swings over and he's done. And then Harry Sweeney starts taking over the front for EF Education because Ben Healy's there. We look at UAE team members. That's Sivakov there. He's sitting in fine position. Brandon McNulty's up there. And we see Tadej Pogačar with Sivakov on the front, taking over from Harry Sweeney after he blew. With Sivakov looking left over his shoulder with just about 900 meters, 1.1K to go here on La Redoute. He looks left over his shoulder and he realizes what we've all known right now sitting on the Chesterfield. Remco Evenepoel is not in the picture, and he's far back. So as Tadej Pogacar is on the left side of the road, he's going to start fading over to the right. He flashes behind the back wheel there of Nielsen Palace from EF Education, comes up the right side, and while he's sitting down and Sivakov's on the front, he doesn't even need his teammates, guys. He just starts accelerating. Once he accelerates, nobody goes with him. I get all excited as I'm sitting on the Chesterfield. They're going to use my plan. Finally, everyone's going to use my plan and let Tadej Pogacar do his own pace up La Redoute and try to go solo right now, as everyone else is going to use their teammates. Because when you look in this group, Two-Door Cycling's Julian Alaphilippe, he had teammates up and near the front. EF Education have Palace and Ben Healy. Tom Pidcock is in the picture. Lidl Trek have Ciccone up there. Thibaut Nice is up there. And there's a third rider that I'll call Baggioli that was further back, slightly out of the picture, but I know he started near the front of the climb. So as Tadej Pogacar is going up solo, I'm getting all excited because I think the group right now is going to work together after La Redoute starts proper, and the cameras go back and find Remco Evenepoel. He's still too far back, so I'm getting excited. But once the cameras come to the front of the peloton, oh no, we see the first of the knuckleheads. It's called Ciccone. He's already had his team as a knuckleheads at 125 kilometers to go riding the front with Soudal Quickstep UAE Team Emirates. They've ridden the front since then, but it was more for getting them into good position. But now for sure, 100% guaranteed, no doubt about it, Ciccone's a knucklehead as he's throwing an attack, trying to bridge up to Tadej Pogacar, who every time when the cameras come up to Tadej Pogacar, guys, he's just putting out feelers. He's not even going 100%. He's not even out of the saddle. This is just like Mirror de Wee when he attacked with 500 meters to go at Flèche Wallonne and looked back over his shoulder. He hasn't even gone 100%. He hasn't left his saddle. His chamois is sitting on the saddle still as he's climbing La Redoute. But back there, Ciccone thinks he's going to bridge across. You don't even want to bridge across. You want the Slovenian to go solo right now. You want your teammates back there, Baggioli and Thibaut Nice, to ride the front if you're Ciccone. And remember, we don't even know where Skilmos is or how Skilmos is feeling at this moment. Maybe Ciccone does because they ride for teammates together on the same team so they could be chatting. But as fans, we don't know. But we do know there's at least 3 Lidl Trek guys there. We know EF Education have multiple numbers. And then when we go back and see Remco Evenepoel, we know he's not at the front, but he's trying to get to the front. And we saw at Amstel Gold when he missed the attack from Tadej Pogacar and Julian Alaphilippe that he might be able to do something special after La Redoute. Well, instead, what happens when the cameras leave Remco Evenepoel and come back up front? Julian Alaphilippe, the Frenchman, is throwing an attack. He thinks this is 2-3 years ago, and he's got that kind of form when he won the Road World Championships twice in his career, back to back. Well, he doesn't have those kind of legs, and I don't think he does, but he's attacking. Ciccone's going with him, and then Julian Alaphilippe's getting close to the gap up to Tadej Pogacar every about 10 seconds. But as I told you, Tadej Pogacar is just playing with the balls of the riders back there right now. He's not even working hard. He's still putting out feelers at this moment as he's going up La Redoute, getting closer and closer to the summit with about 200 meters to go as Julian Alaphilippe has closed that gap up a little bit. Maybe took 2-3 seconds back, but that's about it. Then Julian Alaphilippe blows up, and the front group back there comes back up to Julian Alaphilippe as he's hurt and getting dropped. Well, Tom Pidcock, I told you guys at Strade Bianche, Tadej Pogacar was just playing with the balls of Tom Pidcock and just wanted some company to ride a few more, maybe 10 more K before he dropped him. But Tom Pidcock thought he actually stayed with Tadej Pogacar, so he's throwing an attack up La Redoute, which is blowing the group all up so no one can work well together. Well, Tom Pidcock goes over the top together. Ben Healy goes over with him. When we look at the group behind him, it's Ciccone, Nice, and Julian Alaphilippe back there. And then we look at the next 4 riders. We got Louis there from Intermarché, Ben Tulitz there, and Roman Gregoire's in this group. So we got the possibility of 7, 8, 9 riders coming together at this moment that have multiple teammates. But nobody wants to work together. Nobody wants to follow the tactics of the butterfly effect that I've been giving you guys here while you're watching my videos for the last 4 years. So instead, we still see Ben Healy going full gas with Tom Pidcock. Then we see Remco Evenepoel coming back into the picture. Guys, he's found some legs. He is drilling it down the descent off of La Redoute, full gas as we're coming through all the turns. He's bridging up to that front group up there that's just in front of favorites that I just mentioned. But then we see Ciccone throw in an attack. Julian Alaphilippe's going with him. And they're trying to bridge across up to the 2 riders in front that are still losing time now, about 25 seconds behind the Slovenian Tadej Pogacar, who now is no longer playing around. He's realized, as I'm sure his director sportif did while he was sitting in the car, that no one's working well together. Tade, light these guys up. Well, he decides to get on the gas full now onto the pedals, and the two riders are getting caught by the other two bridging together. So we got Tom Pidcock up there, Ben Healy, Ciccone, and Julian Alaphilippe, the Frenchman from Tudor Cycling, has bridged the gap to put 4 guys in the front. All these guys are knuckleheads, guys. You're not going to catch Tadej Pogačar. You have to go back. Why do you got to go back? Because as Julian Alaphilippe and Ciccone were attacking, the Belgium kid from Soudal Quickstep, Remco Evenepoel, was closing the gap up to the remnants back there, which means all these guys have teammates in the front, which means now these guys back here with Remco Evenepoel's group, EF Education, have Alex Bodine back there, and they have Paulus. They're going to sit on and slow things down while the group of 4 that's chasing Tadej Pogačar is only holding about a 15-second gap on that group, while the Slovenians putting more time into those 4 guys. So there's no chance of winning here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège unless you were to immediately work together. Well, now it's too late for that scenario because the Slovenian is extending the gap further and further up. We look back there at that group there that was Remco Evenepoel's group, and we see Brandon McNulty's throwing in some tacks with about 25 kilometers to go. Okay, you don't want to do this either. Even if you're an American rider from UAE team members, and it's your teammate that's going up the road, Tadej Pogačar, you don't want to bring back these 4 riders, because if you bring back these 4 riders, Ben Healy has at least 2 teammates back there with Alex Bodine and Paulus there. And of course, when we start looking at Treks, Ciccone, he has Baggioli back there, and he has Thibaut Nice back there, so they would all have more teammates. So Brandon McNulty, you do not want to close this gap, and you got riders sitting on your wheel that still have teammates up there like EF Education. Don't close the gap, but he's not listening to me. But luckily for him, Remco Evenepoel's found some legs because he's sprinting across as we see Michael Matthews back there hurting as the gap's extending. But Remco Evenepoel will close up to the back wheel there of the group of 5 being led by Brandon McNulty and close this group up. That means Brandon McNulty will finally back off the gas, and then there's going to be a lot of games being played back there. We go up and look at the Slovenian. He's still going full gas right now over the 4s as he's throwing in more and more time. The gap starts extending out. Now we're talking about 45, 50 seconds to the Slovenian as he's throwing power on the pedal. We go back and look at the 4 chasers. Guys, these guys are holding 15-second gap on the group behind. Jayco has numbers back there. Schmid hasn't been the wisest of teammates, but now we got at least 3, if not 4 Jayco riders back there at this point in time, if I can remember correctly. That means if they start working, well, these 4 guys chasing Tadej Pogačar could certainly get brought back. We come in Rocha Falcon. It's the last and final climb of Liège-Bastogne-Liège with about 14 and a half kilometers to go. Tadej Pogačar is holding a 1 minute and 18-second gap. The 4 leaders coming into the Rocha Falcon. Julian Alaphilippe's on the front. The Frenchman thinks he's going to do something marvelous here, and then he does. He blows up marvelously as we see Ciccone throw in an attack. Once Ciccone throws in an attack, Ben Healy's hurting, but the gap is doable to bring it back. Tom Pidcock's got a gap up there to Ben Healy, but the Frenchman's blowing up, and he's going to start getting wrapped up from the group behind that. Jayco Lula's coming in here, Rocha Falcon to start. Now we go back up and we see the second attack from Ciccone because he knows with the gap at about 10 seconds, he better throw everything in the pedals. He throws it down again. Ben Healy struggles, but he'll close up finally. As he was closing up, Tom Pidcock was getting dropped off the back. So we got 2 guys at 1 minute and 15, 1 minute 20 seconds to Tadej Pogačar. And then we see it's FDJ. They don't want to play tactics either. They just want to start going up the road. So we see it's Guillaume Martin throwing an attack. Mario Schmid, if I remember correctly, is the second wheel on his wheel. And then we look as they're passing Tom Pidcock. That's going to be the day here. And Tadej Pogačar is flying up the road. As the Slovenian from UAE Team Emirates is summoning here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He's got about 8 kilometers to go, and he's holding a 1 minute and 20-second gap. We start looking at the 2 chasers, Ciccone and Ben Healy, who have now started working well together and scratching their distance from 10 seconds out to about 15, 16, 17 seconds on the group behind as Jayco Lula back there is trying to get some organization over the top of Côte de Rocha Falcon. And they got some help from Israel Premier Tech. It's going to be a tight battle here for podium positions, but it's not tight for Tadej Pogačar as he drops down the descent, bombing through the corners, looking magnificent and always looking like he is not struggling here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. We go further back to 2 chasers, down the descent through the same same corner there, the right bend. As you start looking at the river crossing there, we're getting into the industrial side here of Liège. Once these guys come through here, they're still holding about a 20-second gap. It gets a little bit more clear, but it's still edge of your seat, because if they pause just a little bit, they'll get wrapped up from the group behind of Jacobs. Ben O'Connor pulling down the descent. As Ben O'Connor's throwing everything into it, Tadej Pogacar's hitting 1K to go. He'll round the bend with 800 meters to go, the final right turn. Then he's going to start looking over at the camera left. He's going to start celebrating with that little smile. Once he comes into about 200 meters to go, he sits up. Then his hand goes all the way up to the sky to pay respects as he crosses the line here, celebrating a back-to-back victory here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Then behind, what's happening? Well, we see Ben Healy's going to get stuck on the front with about 800 meters to go as Cicconi's sitting second wheel. Ben Healy knows at this point in time you can't win the sprint, so you better just drill it into the finish so the EF Education rider knows there's a podium on the line and the peloton's coming hot on their heels. So Ben Healy drills it all the way into about 200 meters to go, starts sprinting, but Ciccone easily takes the second place away from the EF Education rider who will round out the podium. Now the peloton behind, it's going to be Velasco. Simone Velasco from Astana that'll round out fourth. Fifth will go to Lidl Trek's Thibaut Nice, and sixth will go to Baggioli from Lidl Trek too. So they end up going second, fifth, and sixth here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, but they're the biggest knuckleheads. In my book, there's no doubt about it. Remco Evenepoel, he just had a bad day because Côte de Roche Faucon was one climb too many for the Belgian rider, if not 3 or 4 climbs too many, because he was really suffering about 51 kilometers to go. He did a magnificent job of fighting up Col de la Redoute, and then, of course, fighting to close the gaps up to the groups between the climbs. But once the final climb came, guys, I'll show you the cameras. He almost pulled off to the right side of the road. Looked like he was going to stop. He did end up finishing the race as we see him give a little wave to the fans as he crosses the line, but he lost a ton of time, and his legs, he has certainly got to go back to the drawing board to figure out what happened. They started to go bad, of course, at Flèche Wallonne. He said it was cold. I told you guys it had to be something else for sure. Now we get here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and we see the Belgium kids going bad again. Afterwards in the interviews, he says that I've read that, well, what can you expect? It's too early in the season right now. But if you go to earlier interviews just before Liège-Bastogne-Liège, he says his form was the best it ever was at Flèche Wallonne, but it was just cold legs. Cold legs don't do that here at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. He'd either have to be sick or something else dramatically went wrong. And Pseudo Quickstep in general, the whole team did not look so good once they came off the front after riding throughout most of the stage until we got into the Stavelot region where they kind of disappeared from the front. Well, Tadej Pogacar, congratulations. Back-to-back wins at Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Another monument click there on your resume. So, looks fantastic for the Slovenian, the start of the 25 season. It's time for him to take a little bit of break and then get ready for the Tour de France coming, as the first part of the season has ended for most of the riders right here, at least the classic specialists. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next videos real soon.